Howdy there, Isaac here. After the admittedly good reaction to this what if and my own hype over what I have planned, I just had to make part 2 come out soon. We left off with Zarbon having 3 years to prepare his men and himself for the android invasion. Meanwhile, Cooler has heard of what happened to Frieza and decides to make his way to Earth. So without further ado, let's see what may have happened if Zarbon joined the Zfighters. Story starts now. It had been about a year since the future warriors arrived, and by now the Zarbon force had left Capsule Corp for a slightly bigger training ground. Not that there wasn't ample space for training there, they just couldn't go all out. Besides, Vegeta had come back and was currently staying there, so Zarbon felt it best to stay away from him. The group spent most of their days doing hardcore training within the forest, with Krillin and Yamcha occasionally joining in and helping the weaker members master ki control and other basic martial arts skills. Zarbon was by far the strongest warrior amongst his men, but other than him, Appule, Iru, Blueberry, and Appule were the toughest soldiers he had. Each of his men were from different planets, and Zarbon made good use of that, knowing every race had its unique traits. Appule was a Machian, and so could transform like Zarbon, although his transformation made him slower instead of feral. But together, Zarbon and Appule trained in their transformed states to improve them and lessen their drawbacks, though the commander had a harder time doing so. Meanwhile, Appule trained to use something he saw Ginyu use, the body change technique. See, he was still in Ginyu's body, and while he appreciated the power boost, it was weird. The Appule was now taller and was too light a shade of purple. He simply didn't feel comfortable in that body and was hoping he could learn how to change bodies like Ginyu did. Besides those two, Iru and Blueberry were pretty fierce warriors, each having power levels of 500,000, which made sense as one was a Namekian and the other was some sort of dinosaur or crocodile person, those two races being known for their strength. Aside from that, the Tuffles and Arlean were falling behind, each having power levels below 300k, but Zarbon had an idea of how to get them up to snuff. One day, after a tough training session, Krillin invited everyone out to a camping trip, and Appule happily said they'd all go. But Zarbon told the Tuffles and Pear to stay behind, since they'd be going on a special trip themselves. Appule was, of course, a little upset, since he didn't get to hang with his homies, but accepted this and went without them. The commander gathered his remaining men and had them all follow him to Capsule Corp, where he then forced his way into the gravity chamber, much to the annoyance of Vegeta. Zarbon and Yamcha say they're going to be using the chamber as well, but the prince yells at them to leave, something the reptile doesn't listen to. Listen here, Vegeta. I need to make sure my men are fit to help with these androids. Now, we can't just start at 100 times Earth's gravity. We'll need to crank this down to at least 50. Zarbon went to turn the gravity down, but the prince grabbed his hand, looking him dead in the eyes. If you so much as touch that dial, I will personally send you where that kid sent Frieza. Now, get out of my chamber! Vegeta went to punch Zarbon away, but the commander caught his fist, transforming to intimidate the prince. The two growl and begin to throw punches at each other, them surprisingly being on even terms due to Zarbon further enhancing his control over his form. But even so, he wasn't winning anytime soon. Though he could handle the 300 times Earth's gravity, it was still difficult to move in, while Vegeta was pretty accustomed to it. Other than that, the prince was simply just a little stronger. Zarbon had been working non-stop to surpass a Saiyan, but he still wasn't there, and this caused the commander to be beaten pretty handily after a couple minutes. However, Vegeta did recognize Zarbon's strength, telling Yamcha to get him a bean so they could train together. The reptile wasn't exactly happy about this, but if fighting Vegeta meant his men got to train, then he'd do it without complaint. While that went on, Appule, Blueberry, Iru, Appule, and Mello joined Goku and the others on a camping trip. Like in the movie, the group gets assaulted by Cooler's armored squadron, but this time, they aren't quite so weak. The villains manage to surprise the Z-Fighters and end up taking Gohan hostage, but he's able to wriggle free, leaving Appule and the others able to fight. Blueberry takes on Dory, while Iru fights Naze, with Appule taking on Salza himself. Blueberry is going toe-to-toe with Dory, the two brutes completely even, but the crocodile is loving the thrill of this battle. The two lock hands, each trying to push the other back, but Blueberry then opens his mouth, launching a mouth blast into Dory's face, causing him to stagger back. This gives the crocodile an opening to begin beating his opponent throughout the forest, him actually taking a bit of sadistic pleasure in the act. Meanwhile, Iru and Naze are having a tricky battle between them. The Namekian is able to shrug off his opponent's electric shock, but only barely, since he isn't as strong as Piccolo, while Naze hasn't taken any damage due to his flexible body allowing him to dodge attacks. But Iru does have something planned. When Naze attempts to use his electric shock once more, the Namekian grabs onto and holds his hands. Naze stops his attack, knowing he'd also shock himself, while Iru begins kneeing the amphibian in the chest. Naze is unable to dodge the attack, and Iru knows this, noting he can stretch and move everything except his chest, something he noticed during their fight. And finally, there's Appule fighting off Salza, something the latter seems really happy about.
I never thought you'd betray Lord Frieza, Monsieur Ginyu. But I'm glad, since it means we get to compete once more, this time for real.
The captain begins swinging his lightsaber, Keyblade, at the purple lieutenant. I'm not Ginyu, I'm Appule! The alien caught Salza's blade, kicking the captain away and shooting a baked sphere towards him. Salza is able to slice through the ball of ki, though he now has a frown on his face. He asks if Appule is joking, only to be disappointed that he isn't. The space Frenchman then gets serious and promises to make this quick. However, even when going all out, he's unable to hit Appule. The lieutenant is amazed at his own power, him being able to easily read Salza's movements, him even catching his Keyblade a second time without issue. The captain attempts to pull away, but is ultimately knocked out by a single punch from Appule, much to his shock. However, this is when Cooler arrives on the scene. Mello attempted to take the Iceling on, but was swiftly defeated by a simple tail smack. Appule, Iru, and Blueberry were all sent to their knees by some well-placed death beams. I swear, we trained for this. Perhaps I was too lenient. You two can finish the others off, but this Appule fellow is mine. Cooler walked over and picked the purple alien up by his throat. Now, tell me, where's the Saiyan known as Son Goku? I'll finish you off quickly if you comply. Cooler squeezed Appule's throat tighter. The lieutenant is struggling to breathe, but he didn't say a single word. The Iceling sighed and fired another beam through Appule's shin, before asking once more. This played out for a couple more minutes, before Cooler only had one spot to blast, this being the lieutenant's chest. I respect your loyalty, you're truly an admirable soldier, but I need this information, so tell me, or I'll simply torture your other men until they tell me. Cooler charged up his blast, Appule preparing for his fate, all hope seeming lost. That is until Goku shows up. The Saiyan rushes in, delivering a flying kick right to Cooler's face, sending him flying into the nearby forest. Napple flies in close behind, catching Appule and setting him down to rest. The Machian apologizes for arriving late, but promises to help defeat the remaining villains while Goku takes care of Cooler. Appule nods, telling Napple to make sure the others are safe first. By this point, Salza, Dore, and Naze had all recovered and were about to finish their respective opponents. Napple burst into his second form and raced over to kick Naze and Dore away, but was unable to get to Salza in time. However, a ki blast flies in and sends the captain flying away. When Napple looks over, he's surprised to see Piccolo there, of all people. But the two don't have much time to converse, as Salza and the others regroup and begin their counterattack. You take the brute and weird one, I'll take the leader. Piccolo says, getting ready to fight. Appule nods, and together they're able to finish off the armored squadron with some effort. Meanwhile, Goku and Cooler's fight has been going pretty well once the former went Super Saiyan. However, as we all know, the Iceling has a transformation, and once it reveals this, yeah, things aren't looking good for our Super Saiyan protagonist. Cooler's transformation doesn't allow him to completely surpass Super Saiyan Goku, but he is slightly stronger and faster, and unlike Frieza, he's a competent fighter. Cooler not only has formidable power, but is able to read Goku's movements and respond accordingly, allowing him to begin beating the Saiyan in combat. The Zarbon Force are all amazed that someone could have so much power. They're hardly able to even watch the fight. But Appule has an idea of how to beat Cooler if the others can't. Appule asks who he's referring to, only for Vegeta and Zarbon to arrive, each of them eager to show off some new power. Yamcha and Pear fly in, giving the injured Senzus, while Vegeta bursts into Super Saiyan and the commander uses his own transformation. The prince is content with watching Goku being beaten, but Zarbon decides to launch a cosmic energy flash, sending 3 key spheres flying right into Cooler's back.
Ah, so the flies want to get in on this too? Well, come, battle me then.
Cooler flew in, grabbing both Vegeta and Zarbon's faces, dragging them against the ground before launching them into the distance with a couple key spheres. Everyone watches as the spheres blow up far away, destroying a large swath of the forest, while Cooler simply laughs. This, however, gives Goku a chance to begin charging up a spirit bomb, him running into the nearby forest to hide while he does so. The Iceling looks around for Goku only to receive a punch to the back of his head from Vegeta.
You didn't think that'd be enough to off me, did you?
Zarbon then flies in and delivers a kick to Cooler's stomach.
We're no mere flies. Now pay for underestimating us.
Zarbon launches an elegant blaster into Cooler's stomach, while Vegeta launches a galley gun right into his back, the two beams clashing and causing a huge explosion in the middle. However, for as strong as this technique is, Cooler is able to shrug it off and begins beating both the combatants while laughing sadistically.
Ha 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 ha. Come on, is that it? All that tough talk, and this is the best you've got? Perhaps my baby brother would have fallen to that, but not me. Now, you'll pay for underestimating me.
Cooler kicks both Zarbon and Vegeta back towards the Earth before flying up and beginning to charge up a supernova. As he's doing so, the Iceling can't help but notice a large white orb shining from within the forest. He takes note of it, but decides there's no point as he'll just blow up the whole planet and be done with it. He flings a supernova down towards the Earth, laughing to himself, only to see his sphere suddenly halt. Cooler growls in frustration as he sees Vegeta, Zarbon, and all the others launching ki blasts at his supernova, their combined power just barely halting his attack. Everyone starts to cheer as they think they could actually repel the attack, but Cooler simply starts laughing again.
Nicely done. I applaud you. But what are you going to do about the second one?
A secondary supernova slams into the first, them once again descending towards the Earth. The Zfighters are all trying to give their blast more power, but they're already at their limits. Goku then throws a Genkidama towards the supernova, but this is only enough to halt them once more. The Saiyan then charges up a Kamehameha, blasting it towards the supernova and yelling out Kaioken before his blast hits, giving it just enough oomph to send the blasts all rocketing towards Cooler.
What? How could you? No! It can't end like this! No, 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 no!
The Z-Fighters watch as Cooler is consumed by their blasts, his visage disappearing into the stratosphere. Goku and several of the fighters all fall to the ground, hardly able to move, while Zarbon and Vegeta are panting and struggling to stay on their feet.
Heh, serves him right. Arrogant, just like his brother,
Vegeta said, before falling to his knees. Yeah, he was way stronger than Freezer, but we did it, haha, ow. Zarbon asks if Yamcha has any more Senzu, but he says this was all he could grab and that they were straight off the planet itself. Well, at least they didn't have to worry about anyone else attacking now. Well, about that. Cooler suddenly falls back to the earth, his body singed and smoking, but still alive. The Iceling struggles to his feet. Clearly the attack took a bit out of him, but at this point, his opponents were faring much better.
I can't believe this ragtag group was actually able to injure me. I respect your strength, but it wasn't enough. Now I'm going to end each and every single one of you, slowly.
Cooler blasts Vegeta through the chest, before aiming his finger towards Zarbon. Appule, who's barely able to stay conscious, tells Napple to aim his head towards Cooler. The Machian does so, and Appule yells, "Change now." Cooler, now in Ginyu's body, asks what's going on, him slowly realizing what happened, only for a death beam to be shot through his heart, ending him without a single word. Appule then transformed back into Cooler's base, and fell to the ground, just as exhausted as everyone else. Eventually, Orlin and Lit, who were out doing alien shenanigans or something, arrived, helping to carry Vegeta and whoever else couldn't move by that point. The only person comfortable with helping Appule was Zarbon, who knew and trusted his friend. He rushed his friend to the healing chamber within their ship, though the damage Cooler's body had sustained was far more severe than anybody could fathom. Appule was teetering between the living realm and afterlife, just barely holding on with the help of the healing fluids Bulma was able to concoct. Other than Appule, Zarbon, Vegeta, and especially Goku needed to go into the healing chambers, as his body had an especially vitriolic response to mixing Super Saiyan and Kaioken. Unfortunately, once everyone else heals, Appule is still within the chamber. Days go by, then weeks, and while Appule is completely healed, he is still comatose, unable to wake. Zarbon and the others had stopped their training, but after a month, Orlin says they need to continue, even without their friend. The others argue against this, but Zarbon agrees. "Men, we need to train, especially for Appule. If he knew we stopped for him, he'd be appalled. And anyways, if we don't train and lose to those droids, then what do you think would happen to him? He'd be destroyed along with us. So, let's train our hearts out to stay alive, to see our Appule come back." And so, for 2 years, Zarbon and his men trained their hardest, occasionally using the gravity chamber alongside Vegeta. Throughout this time, the commander took up Appule's mantle of making sure the men had a day off to enjoy themselves, taking everyone out for ice cream every Saturday. The reptile didn't have much interaction with humans, but when he ordered ice cream for the boys, he couldn't help but take notice of the cashier there. This is spurred on by the fact that he knows he eventually has a son, he just doesn't know who with or what. So he decides, why not at least try and socialize with people? Zarbon goes on to learn the cashier's name is Sunday, and she's actually the owner of the ice cream establishment. The two end up flirting a little. Well, Sunday does. Zarbon is kinda oblivious, but happily takes the compliments. The night eventually ends with Sunday asking Zarbon out sometime, and a date is set for the next Saturday. This all happens about 2 years before the android's attack, and so Zarbon and Sunday date for that time, with the reptile taking this time to really learn more about Earth and its culture. He also learns that Sunday has a knack for managing people, her being surprisingly stern, even outside of work. Overall, the two have a pretty strong friendship, and they are into each other, but they never conceive a child. Not for lack of trying, but it just never happens. The commander wonders if this is how things are supposed to go, if perhaps he did something different or wrong, but chooses not to fixate on such things. The day of the android invasion comes, and instead of waiting, Zarbon arrives early and orders his men to evacuate the city. Once it's been mostly evacuated, Zarbon sends Orlin, Napple, Mello, and Blueberry to secure the outskirts of the city while having Iru use his superior hearing to listen for combat. Once the other Z-Fighters get there, they immediately fly into town, asking what Zarbon is up to. "I'm limiting casualties and preparing for the enemy. Instead of coming to them, they'll have to come to us." As soon as Zarbon finishes that sentence, he feels Orlin's ki plummet, and Iru alerts him that combat has started. Zarbon, Iru, Pear, and the Zfighters all race over, finding Gero draining the lieutenant. He's about to shove a hand through his chest, but Zarbon quickly transforms and kicks a droid away. 19 attempts to fly in, but Iru gets in the way and begins fighting it. Gero is surprised at this strength. From what he knows, these guys shouldn't be anywhere near this power level. But man, oh man, has he underestimated them. Goku asks Zarbon to let him fight Gero, and the commander allows him to do so, figuring he should help out Iru. The other Zarbon Force members surround the area, making sure no other androids exist and that the current ones can't escape. Goku falls to the heart virus, but then Vegeta arrives, and well, that's just overkill. Gero and 19 are destroyed, with Zarbon having a bit of a hard time with his droid, but getting the deed done. Huh, that was easier than they thought it'd be. Guess they overtrained a bit. Zarbon isn't exactly keen on taking any chances though, and has Namul tend to Iru while having the others spread out and secure the area further. Off in the distance, a certain Bugman just watches Creator get destroyed and simply chuckles to himself. Moments later, he makes his way to Gero's lab and opens the door. Who knew it'd be so easy? Now, brother, sister, get ready to become part of something glorious. Something perfect. But that's where we're going to leave it off for right now. If you enjoyed this part, I'd appreciate you guys elegantly blasting the like button, or perhaps even body swapping the subscribe button, if that even makes any sense. You know what, at this point you guys get what I mean. Anyways, since the inception of part 1, I've been waiting to make Appule swap bodies with Cooler. I hope it's not too outlandish, but hey, it's an April Fool's what if, so you know. Also, man, we're at 327 subscribers at the time of recording this. Honestly, we're growing so fast, and it's all thanks to your guys' support. I'm really happy I can make all this cool weeb stuff, and you guys seem to enjoy it too. I also can't wait to get to 1K and begin making community posts and polls and really interacting with you all. Until then, I suppose we'll just have to do these little rants, huh? Well, I suppose I rambled enough actually. You guys have a good day or night wherever you are. That's it for now. Bye bye.